We don't change until our fear of change is exceeded by the pain. Most people never really move into recovery until they're forced to move into it, because there's no other option. God uses 3 denial busters, things that get our attention, to force us to move into recovery from things that have messed up our lives. The first one is crisis. Things like illness, stress, losing our job. The second one is confrontation. When somebody cares enough about us, about you and I, to say, you know what? You're blowing it. Somebody loves us enough to confront us in the truth and love and say, you're missing out. You're about to lose your job if you don't stop this addiction. You're about to lose your health. You're about to lose your family if this doesn't stop. An old saying in Texas is that if somebody calls you a horse's rear, ignore it. If 2 people call you a horse's rear, you better look in the mirror. And if 3 people call you a horse's rear, you better go buy a saddle. You know, that so applies in so many ways. If 3 people call us a workaholic, we better go buy a saddle. If 3 people call you an alcoholic, you better go buy a saddle. If 3 people say you need to get some help, you better buy a saddle. Pain is like a fire alarm. It goes off. And when it goes off, it's what? It's warning us something's wrong in our lives. If we had a fire alarm go off in our house, what would we do? Oh, that stupid fire alarm. Somebody throw a rock at it and bust it, please. Break it. Turn it off. No, we would do something about it. So many times in our life when we hear the pain come out, the fire alarm, if you will, going off in our life, instead of that pain, instead of just dealing with the source, what we do is we try to cover up the sound. We cover it up with food, alcohol, sex, many different things we can go on and on and on about. But that really doesn't deal with the problem. It doesn't deal with it, does it? So many times God uses these things to get our attention. And the third thing is catastrophe. And I hope God never has to use that in our lives, but it's when the bottom falls out. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, relationally, when the bottom falls out and we hit that rock bottom, what happens so often is that God just has to step back and let us feel the full impact of our own stupid decisions. You want to be God? Okay, here you go. And He'll just step back and let us be God. And then we reap what we sowed and we feel the full impact that causes a catastrophe in our lives. We said last week the first step in recovery is to first realize we're not God. Admit we're powerless to control our tendency to do the wrong thing and that our life is unmanageable. That's the first step. It's called the reality step. And the second step this morning is the hope step. Step 1 says I admit it, I'm helpless, I'm powerless. Step 2 says there is power. That's the good news. There's a power we can plug into to handle things that we can't handle on our own. The E in this morning is earnestly believe that God exists, that we matter to Him, and that He has the power to help us recover. The second step is based on Hebrews 11:6. Anyone who comes to God must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who earnestly seek Him. Hebrews 11:6. There are 3 parts to taking step 2 in this road this journey to recovery. Number 1 is acknowledge God's existence. Acknowledge God's existence. Most of us have no problem in this, but George Gallup did a survey in 2016 and 89% 89% of the people say they believe in a God. 9% of the people say they are atheists. Now, there are far fewer atheists today than there were 50 years ago, because we know more about the universe today than we did 50 years ago. We know more about this